The desperate trade the air recyclers of Nexus Prime wheezed like dying animals. Pushing stale oxygen through corridors that hadn't seen proper maintenance in years, Nira pulled her worn cloak tighter as she navigated the lower market levels, her daughter Kila's weight heavy in her arms. The 7-year-old Zephorian girl's breathing came in short. Painful gasps, her normally iridescent blue skin now a sickly gray. Crystal lung disease. The words echoed in Nira's mind like a death sentence. 3 months the doctors had given them, maybe 6, with expensive treatments they couldn't afford. Nira had already sold everything valuable, their family heirlooms, her father's trading ship, even her late husband's ceremonial blade. Still not enough. The human section of the market buzzed with activity despite the late hour. Humans never seemed to sleep, always trading, always moving. Nira had dealt with them before, found them shrewd, but generally honest. Today she needed to find one in particular. Marcus Chen's stall stood apart from the others, cleaner and better organized. The human himself was tall for his species, with kind eyes that seemed to see too much, and graying hair that spoke of years spent in the void between stars. He looked up as Nira approached, his expression shifting from businesslike to concerned as he saw Kella. The Zephyrian trader Marcus said, "I heard about your daughter, Crystal Lung." Nira nodded, unable to trust her voice. Marcus had a reputation for fair deals, but also for being impossible to sway with emotion. Today that might work against her. "I have something to trade," she managed finally. Marcus gestured to a chair. "Sit. Let me look at the child first." He examined Keela with surprising gentleness, his scanner revealing what Nira already knew. Advanced stage crystal lung, requiring immediate intervention and months of treatment. The cost would be astronomical. "The treatment runs about 40,000 credits, Marcus said quietly. "The surgery alone is 15. "What did you want to trade?" Nira's hand went to her chest, over her heart. Not her biological heart, but the other one. The emotion core that made Zephyrians capable of love, empathy, joy. Without it, she would become efficient, logical, but hollow. "My emotion core," she whispered. Marcus went very still. "Nira, you can't be serious." "I am. There's a market for them. Collectors, researchers. You know people, that's not legal commerce, that's butchery." Marcus stood, pacing. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." Nira's voice was steady now, resolved. "I've tried everything else. This is all I have left to give." Marcus looked at Kella, then back at Nira. She could see the war in his expression, his natural compassion fighting against the harsh realities of their world. Finally, he sat back down. "If we do this, and I mean if it has to be done right, clean extraction, proper preservation, I know a Dr. Dryina Voss. She's the best in the sector for this kind of work." "How much?" Nira asked. 30,000. Maybe 35 with the preservation costs. It wasn't enough for the full treatment, but it was a start. With that much, she could get the emergency surgery that would buy Keela time. Maybe find other ways to earn the rest. "When?" Nira asked. Marcus closed his eyes. "Tomorrow night, Dr. Voss runs a clinic in Sector 7. Unofficial, but completely sterile." He opened his eyes, meeting hers. "Nira, once this is done, you can't undo it. You'll still love Kella intellectually, but you won't feel it. Won't feel anything, I understand. Do you?" "Really?" Marcus leaned forward. "I've seen Zephyrians after core extraction. They become like machines. Efficient, logical, but empty. Is that what you want Kella to remember of her mother?" Nira looked down at her daughter, sleeping fitfully in the chair. Kella's fever had broken recently, but Nira knew it was temporary. Without treatment, the crystal formations in her lungs would continue growing until breathing became impossible. "I want her to remember having a mother at all," Nira said finally. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his desk and pulled out a credit chip. "This is 5,000. Down payment. Consider it a gesture of good faith." Nira took the chip with trembling hands. "Thank you. Don't thank me," Marcus said grimly. "Not for this." As Nira left the stall with Kella, she didn't see Marcus pulling up his secure cum channel. His fingers hesitated over the keypad before he finally typed a message to Dr. Yina Voss. Need to meet urgent, bringing a case that's going to haunt us both. The message sent. Marcus stared out at the bustling market. Somewhere in the maze of stalls and shops, a mother was preparing to sacrifice her ability to love to save her child. And he was going to help her do it, for the first time in years. Marcus Chen questioned whether being human was something to be proud of. The empty shelf surgery had taken 6 hours. Nira woke in Dr. Yenavas's clinic feeling strange, untethered. The world looked the same, but felt different, like viewing everything through thick glass. Dr. Voss, a striking woman with silver-streaked hair and intelligent green eyes, monitored her recovery with professional concern. The extraction was successful, Dr. Voss explained, her voice carefully neutral. The core is perfectly preserved in cryo-storage, full functionality maintained. Nira nodded. The information was useful, but didn't affect her emotionally. She understood intellectually that this should disturb her, but felt nothing about the absence of feeling. Where is Kella? Nira asked. Marcus is watching her in the next room. She's been asking for you. Nira stood, testing her balance. Everything functioned normally. She was simply more efficient now. Unencumbered by emotional responses that served no logical purpose, she found Keela in the recovery room, sitting next to Marcus, who was reading her a story from a datapad. The little girl's color was already better, the emergency treatment having stabilized her condition. When she saw Nira, Kella's face lit up with joy. Mama. She ran to Nira, wrapping small arms around her waist. Nira looked down at her daughter. She understood that Kella expected comfort, reassurance, love. These were logical parental responses. Nira placed her hands on Kella's shoulders in what she calculated was an appropriate gesture. How do you feel? Nira asked. Better. The nice doctor said the crystals stopped growing. Are you okay, Mama? You sound different. I am functioning optimally, Nira replied. Kella pulled back, confusion in her large eyes. Functioning. Marcus watched the interaction with obvious discomfort. Nira, maybe you should rest more before rest is unnecessary. I am fully operational. Nira turned to Dr. Voss. When will the payment be processed? Marcus already handled the transfer. 32,000 credits. As agreed, Nira nodded. Efficient, with the emergency surgery costs covered, Keela would survive the immediate crisis. Calculating future treatment costs and her earning potential without the emotional drain of anxiety and fear. Nira determined their situation was manageable. We should return to our quarters, Nira announced. The walk through Nexus Prime's corridors felt different. The sights and sounds that once seemed overwhelming in their intensity now simply provided data. The beggar near the lift, who used to break her heart with his plight, was simply an inefficient allocation of station resources. The music from the cantina that once made her smile was now just atmospheric noise. Kalla walked beside her, unusually quiet. Several times, she glanced up at Nira as if expecting something that didn't come. When they reached their small living space, Kella sat on her bed and looked at her mother with those two wise eyes. Mama, why don't you seem happy that I'm better? Nira considered the question. Your recovery is satisfactory. Happiness is not required for acknowledgement of positive outcomes. But before, when good things happened, you would smile and hug me, and sometimes we would dance. Dancing. Nira had vague memories of that behavior. It had served no practical purpose, but had occurred frequently when Kella was younger. Such activities are inefficient uses of time and energy. Tears started forming in Kella's eyes. Don't you love me anymore? Love? The concept existed in Nira's memory banks, a biochemical response that drove protective and nurturing behaviors. She had experienced it intensely before the extraction, an overwhelming compulsion to prioritize Kella's welfare above her own. Now she understood that Kella's welfare was important for logical reasons. Genetic continuation and social responsibility, but the driving emotional force was absent. Love is an inefficient emotional response, Nira explained. I will continue to provide for your needs and ensure your welfare. This is more reliable than emotion-based care. Kella began crying in earnest now. Nira observed this response and determined it was distress-based rather than pain-based. Comfort would be the appropriate response. She sat beside Kella and placed an arm around her shoulders, maintaining the position for what she calculated was inadequate. Duration. Your emotional distress is understandable but unnecessary, Nira said. I am still your mother. My care for you is now based on logic rather than chemical impulses, making it more stable and predictable. This explanation seemed to increase rather than decrease Kella's distress. Nira made a note that her reassurance protocols required adjustment. 3 days later, Marcus visited their quarters. Kella ran to him immediately, something she had never done before. Nira observed this behavior shift with mild interest. Uncle Marcus. Kella wrapped her arms around his waist. Mama doesn't love me anymore. She says love is inefficient. Marcus's jaw tightened. He looked over Kella's head at Nira, who was organizing their few remaining possessions with mechanical precision. Nira, could I speak with you privately? Kella may remain present. There are no topics requiring privacy from her. There are some topics, Marcus said firmly. Kella, could you go play in the corridor for a few minutes? After Kella left reluctantly, Marcus confronted Nira directly. This isn't working. Define this. You. The way you're treating Keela. She's a 7-year-old girl who just watched her mother become a stranger. I am functioning more efficiently than before. Emotional volatility no longer affects my decision-making or resource allocation. She needs her mother to love her, Nira. Not just provide for her. She needs medical treatment, food, shelter, and education. Emotional displays are unnecessary additions to proper care. Marcus ran his hands through his hair in frustration. She's crying herself to sleep every night. She keeps asking me why you don't smile anymore, why you don't sing to her, why you don't want to play with her. Nira processed this information. If these activities are important to her psychological development, I can schedule time for their implementation. Schedule time to love your daughter. To simulate love behaviors? Yes. 15 minutes of recreational interaction per day should be sufficient. Marcus stared at her for a long moment. Then, without warning, he grabbed her shoulders and kissed her hard on the mouth. Nira registered the physical contact, the pressure and warmth, but felt no emotional response whatsoever when he pulled away. His eyes were searching her face desperately. Nothing. You feel nothing? The physical sensation was registered. If you are seeking sexual interaction, please clarify your intentions so I may provide appropriate response. Marcus stepped back as if she had struck him. God help us all, he whispered. What have we done? As he left, Nira returned to her organizing. The interaction had been puzzling, but not distressing. She made note that Marcus might require adjustment time to adapt to her improved functionality. From the corridor, she could hear Kella sobbing in Marcus's voice, low and comforting. Trying to explain something that couldn't be explained, Nira continued her work. Efficiency was important. Emotion was not. But somewhere in the back of her enhanced, logical mind, a small part of her memory banks kept replaying the sound of her daughter crying over and over again. The search for redemption, Marcus couldn't sleep. For 2 weeks since Nira's extraction, he had watched a bright, loving child slowly wither under the care of a mother who provided everything except what she needed most. He found himself spending more and more time in their quarters, trying to fill the emotional void that Nira's efficiency had created tonight. He sat in his stall long after the market had closed, staring at the credit chip that contained his payment for arranging Nira's surgery. Blood money. He had told himself he was helping, that 32,000 credits would save Kella's life. But saving a child's life meant nothing if you killed her spirit in the process. His secure come chimed. Dr. Yenna Voss appeared on the screen, her green eyes tired but alert. Marcus, it's late. What's wrong? Everything, he said simply. The Zephyrian woman, Nira. Have you checked on her since the extraction? Yenna's expression grew guarded. That's not typically part of post-operative care for this type of procedure. Maybe it should be. Marcus leaned forward. Yenna, her daughter is dying inside. Not from crystal lung, but from having a mother who treats her like a maintenance task. The emotional adjustment period is always difficult. This isn't adjustment. This is torture. Marcus's voice hardened. A 7-year-old girl is asking me why her mama doesn't love her anymore. What am I supposed to tell her? Yenna was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. I've been having nightmares about that surgery, Marcus. About the look in her eyes when she woke up. Like all the light had gone out. Then help me fix it. It can't be fixed. Emotion core extraction is irreversible. The neural pathways close within hours of removal. Even if we could get the core back. What do you mean get it back? Marcus interrupted. Yenna hesitated. The core is still in cryo storage at my clinic. Preservation was part of the service fee. But Marcus, even if we had it, reimplantation is impossible. The success rate is essentially zero. Essentially zero isn't actually zero. It's close enough. The trauma of reconnecting severed neural pathways would likely cause permanent brain damage or death. Marcus was quiet for several minutes, thinking. Finally, he looked up at Yenna. Where does the black market get emotion cores? What? You said there's a market for them. Collectors, researchers. Where do they come from originally? Marcus, I don't think answer the question, Yenna, please, she sighed. Most come from desperate people like Nira. But some come from research facilities. There are labs working on synthetic emotion cores, trying to understand how consciousness and feeling interface. Synthetic cores that actually work? Theoretical ones. The research is highly classified and incredibly expensive. Only a few facilities in the galaxy have the resources. Marcus felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. What if we could get access to that research? Figure out how to safely reconnect Nira to her emotions. Marcus, that would require breaking into a level 7 research facility. The security alone would be impossible to breach, and the legal penalties. What if I told you there was a 7-year-old girl who cries herself to sleep every night because her mother can't love her? Yenna's image on the screen flickered as she shifted uncomfortably. That's emotional manipulation. Yes, it is, because emotions matter, Yenna. They're what make us more than just biological machines. Marcus leaned closer to the screen. You became a doctor to help people. Is this helping? Yenna was quiet for a long time. Marcus could see her internal struggle playing out across her features. Finally, she spoke. There's a research station 3 sectors away. Nexus Laboratories. They've been working on emotion core synthesis for 5 years. Highly classified military applications mostly. Military applications? Imagine soldiers who could function without fear but restore their emotions after combat. Or negotiators who could temporarily suppress empathy for difficult decisions. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Could that technology be adapted for permanent extraction reversal? Hypothetically, yes. But Marcus's Nexus Laboratories is a fortress. Armed guards, automated defenses, biometric locks. Even if we could get inside, we'd need someone with advanced knowledge of Zephyrian neurology, someone like you. Yenna laughed bitterly. I'm a back alley surgeon who lost her license for performing illegal procedures. They'd have teams of the best researchers in the galaxy. But you understand the basic principles. You could figure it out if you had access to their data. Marcus, this is insane. We're talking about breaking into a military research facility to steal classified technology for an experimental procedure that will probably kill the patient, and if we don't try? Yenna looked away from the screen. Marcus could see her struggling with the decision. When she looked back, her eyes held a new determination. Nexus Laboratories runs a skeleton crew during storm season. The electromagnetic interference from the nebula makes communications and sensors unreliable. If we were going to attempt something this stupid, that would be the time. When's the next storm? For days, Marcus felt his heart rate accelerate. What would we need? Fake identification, a way past their security, someone who knows the facility layout, and a lot of luck. Yenna paused. and someone crazy enough to try. I can handle crazy, Marcus said. What about you? Yenna smiled for the first time since he'd known her, a real smile that transformed her entire face. I've been performing illegal surgeries in a Backley clinic for 3 years, Marcus. I passed crazy a long time ago. After ending the call, Marcus sat in the darkness of his stall, thinking about what they were planning. Breaking into a military facility was an act of desperation that could get them both killed or imprisoned for life. But when he thought about Kella's face, about the way she had looked at her mother with such confused pain, he knew they had to try. Somewhere in the sleeping quarters of Nexus Prime, a little girl was probably crying for her mama, and her mama was probably organizing their possessions with mechanical efficiency. Unable to understand why her daughter's distress seemed to register as important data that she couldn't process, Marcus made his decision. They had 4 days to plan something impossible. For the first time since Nira's surgery, he smiled. The heist and revelation electromagnetic storm hit Nexus Laboratories like a living thing, sending spirals of energy crackling across the station's hull. From their position in a stolen maintenance pod, Marcus and Yenna watched the facility's external defenses flicker and dim as the storm's interference played havoc with their systems. Communications are down, Yenna reported, monitoring their scanner. Security sensors are operating at maybe 30% efficiency. Marcus piloted their small craft closer to the station's service bay. They had spent 3 days planning this insane operation, obtaining forged maintenance credentials and studying the facility's layout through Marcus's black market contacts. The storm window would last maybe 6 hours before the interference cleared. Remember, need to get to level 7, the restricted research labs, Yenna said, checking her equipment pack one more time. The data on emotion core synthesis should be in their main computer core and Nira's core. If we can find the synthesis technology, we might not need it. Synthetic cores could work just as well and wouldn't require the trauma of connecting damaged neural pathways. Their pod docked with the service bay without challenge. The storm's interference had reduced the automated security to basic functions. They made their way through maintenance corridors, Yenna's forged credentials getting them past the few guards they encountered. The research levels were eerily quiet, most staff having evacuated to safer areas during the storm. They found the main computer terminal in a lab filled with strange equipment and tanks containing what looked like organic components suspended in glowing fluid. This is it, Yenna breathed. Accessing the terminal? Emotion Core Synthesis Project. Marcus, look at this. The screen displayed detailed schematics of Zephyrian neural pathways and experimental synthetic cores. But as Yenna scrolled through the data, Marcus noticed something else. Double quotes. YENNA. Look at the test subjects list. She pulled up the file and went pale. These aren't volunteers. These are purchased cores from extracted subjects. The list contained dozens of entries. Zephyrian emotion cores, Kelton empathy clusters, human limbic system components, all purchased through black market dealers. It's all extracted from living beings who had needed money desperately enough to sell pieces of their souls. We're not the first to have this idea, Marcus said grimly. They've been working on reversal procedures for years. Yenna's fingers flew across the keyboard. Marcus, according to this data, they've had limited success with reimplantation. But only if the original core is used within 72 hours, and the patient undergoes a specific preparation protocol. How limited is limited? 60% survival rate. 40% full emotional restoration. The rest suffer partial recovery or neural damage. Marcus felt his heart sink. Those weren't good odds, but they were better than he'd expected. What about Nira? How long has it been since her extraction? 18 days. Way beyond the window for safe reimplantation. What about synthetic cores? Yenna continued reading, her expression growing more hopeful. This is incredible. They've created synthetic emotion cores that are actually superior to natural ones in some ways. More stable, less prone to emotional overload, but still capable of full empathy and love. Can you download the procedure? Already Yenna's fingers worked quickly as data flowed into her portable storage device. But Marcus, the surgery would still be incredibly dangerous. Even with synthetic cores, the neural integration process alarms suddenly began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lighting cast everything in red, and they could hear the sound of running footsteps in the corridor outside. "Storm's clearing," Marcus said, checking his scanner. "Security systems are coming back online." "Almost done," Yenna muttered, her hands steady despite the chaos. "Just need the post-operative protocols," and the lab door burst open. 6 security guards in full combat armor rushed in, weapons drawn. Marcus grabbed Yenna and pulled her behind a bank of equipment as energy blast seared the air where they'd been standing. "Surrender now, and you might live through this." One guard called out. Marcus and Yenna exchanged glances. The data download was at 90%, but they were trapped. Marcus could see the guards spreading out to flank their position. "How much longer?" he whispered. 30 seconds, Yenna replied. Marcus pulled out the only weapon he had, maintenance laser tool he'd brought for cutting through doors. "Not much against military-grade armor, but it might buy them time. When I move, run for the data core and finish the download," he told Yenna. "Marcus, no. They'll kill you. Better than letting Kella grow up with a mother who can't love her." Marcus stood up and fired the laser at the nearest guard, the beams scattering harmlessly off his armor, but causing him to dive for cover. The other guards opened fire, energy blasts, turning their hiding place into a ruin of sparking electronics. Yenna reached the data core and slammed her palm on the download control. 95%. 98%. A guard appeared around the corner of their barricade, weapon aimed at Yenna's head. Marcus threw himself between them, taking an energy blast in the shoulder that spun him around and sent him crashing into a bank of monitors. "Marcus!" Yenna screamed. The download completed just as more guards stormed their position. Yenna grabbed the storage device and Marcus, hauling him toward an emergency exit she'd spotted during their reconnaissance. They stumbled through maintenance corridors as alarms wailed around them. Marcus's shoulder was badly burned, but he could still move. Behind them, they could hear pursuit getting closer. "The maintenance bay," Yenna gasped. "If we can reach the pod," they burst into the bay to find their escape route blocked by more guards. Trapped between two forces, Marcus and Yenna pressed against the outer bulkhead, the storm's energy still crackling just beyond the transparent aluminum windows. "It's over." One of the guards called out, "Drop the storage device and step away from the bulkhead." Yenna looked at Marcus, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry I got you into this." "You didn't get me into anything," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the pain. "I volunteered, remember?" He reached out and touched her face gently, surprised by the softness of her skin. In all their planning and preparation, he hadn't really looked at her before. Not as a person, just as an ally in their desperate mission. "Yenna," he said quietly. "If we don't make it out of here, we will," she interrupted. "We have to. Kella needs her mother back." The guards were closing in from both sides now. Yenna clutched the storage device containing the data that could restore Nira's ability to love her daughter. Marcus put his good arm around her, holding her close as their desperate gamble came to an end. But sometimes, in the darkest moments, hope finds a way. The storm outside suddenly intensified, sending a massive electromagnetic pulse through the station. Every electronic system in the bay flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. In the confusion that followed, 2 figures slipped away into the storm, carrying with them the key to healing a broken heart. The heart returns, Hometh surgery took place in Dr. Yenna Voss's clinic. Now converted into an operating theater that would have impressed medical facilities 10 times its size. The stolen data from Nexus Laboratories had provided everything they needed: synthetic emotion, core schematics, neural integration protocols, and post-operative care instructions. .NIRA lay on the operating table. Appearing oddly calm for someone about to undergo a procedure with questionable survival odds, she had agreed to the surgery with the same emotionless logic she applied to everything else, calculating that the potential benefits outweighed the risks. "The synthetic core is ready," Yenna announced, holding up a device that looked remarkably similar to Nira's original emotion center, but with subtle differences. Enhanced stability, reduced risk of rejection, and improved integration with Zephyrian neural pathways. Marcus stood by Keela, who had insisted on being present despite the adult's attempts to convince her otherwise. The 7-year-old girl held his hand tightly, her large eyes fixed on her mother. "Is Mama going to be okay?" Kella asked for the 10th time. "She's going to be better than okay," Marcus assured her. Hoping it was true, Yenna had spent days preparing for this moment, studying the stolen research data until she could perform the procedure in her sleep. The synthetic emotion core was theoretically superior to natural ones, designed to integrate seamlessly with existing neural pathways while providing full emotional range. "Kella," Yenna said gently, "we need you to sit in the chair next to your mama and hold her hand during the surgery." "Why?" "Because Zephyrian family bonds are stronger than most species realize. Your emotional connection to your mother will help guide the synthetic core as it integrates with her nervous system." It was partially true. The research had shown that family members could indeed influence the integration process. But Yenna also knew that if something went wrong, if Nira didn't survive the surgery, Kella deserved to be holding her mother's hand. Marcus squeezed Kella's shoulder. "You're the most important part of this whole operation, kiddo. Your mama needs your love to find her way back to her feelings." Kella nodded solemnly and took her. Positioned beside the operating table, she grasped Nira's hand in both of hers and closed her eyes, concentrating with the intensity only children could manage. "Beginning integration sequence," Yenna announced. The synthetic emotion core went into Nira's chest cavity with surgical precision. Ina's hands were completely steady as she made the delicate neural connections that would determine whether Nira lived or died, whether she would return to her daughter emotionally whole or remain forever hollow. Marcus monitored the life support systems, watching Nira's vital signs fluctuate as her body responded to the foreign device. Her heart rate spiked, then dropped dangerously low. Brain activity showed chaotic patterns as new neural pathways formed and integrated. "Something's wrong," Marcus said. "Her neural activity is all over the place." "It's supposed to be," Yenna replied, not looking up from her work. "The synthetic core is establishing connections with every major emotional center in her brain. It's going to be chaotic until the integration stabilizes." Kella squeezed her mother's hand tighter. "Come back, Mama," she whispered. "I need you to come back." The monitors suddenly went wild, alarms blaring as Nira's body convulsed on the table. Her vital signs were crashing across the board. "She's going into shock," Yenna said tersely, grabbing emergency stimulants. "Marcus, increase the neural dampeners. We need to slow down the integration process." "The dampeners are already at maximum," Marcus replied, his hands flying over the controls. Kella started crying, but she never let go of her mother's hand. "Please, Mama. Please don't leave me alone." For several terrifying minutes, it seemed like they might lose Nira entirely. Her heart stopped twice, requiring emergency resuscitation. Her brain activity flatlined before surging back to chaotic levels that should have caused permanent damage. Then, gradually, the chaos began to settle into more normal patterns. The synthetic emotion core's integration slowed to manageable levels, allowing Nira's nervous system to adapt without being overwhelmed. "Vitals are stabilizing," Marcus reported, hardly daring to believe it. Yenna finished the last neural connection and stepped back, exhausted. "Integration is complete. Now we wait to see if she wakes up, and if she does, whether the emotional restoration worked." They didn't have to wait long. Nira's eyes opened slowly, blinking in the clinic's bright lights. For a moment, she looked around with the same empty expression she'd worn for weeks. Then her gaze fell on Keela, and everything changed. Tears began streaming down Nira's face as she saw her daughter's tear-stained cheeks and frightened eyes. The full weight of the past weeks hit her like a physical blow. The memory of treating her beloved child like a maintenance task, of being unable to comfort her when she cried. "Kella," Nira whispered, her voice breaking. "My precious baby girl, what did I do to you?" Kella threw herself into her mother's arms, sobbing with relief and joy. "Mama, you're back. You're really back." Nira held her daughter tightly, feeling the overwhelming love that had been locked away returning in full force. It was almost too much to bear, months of suppressed emotion flooding through her at once. "I'm so sorry," Nira wept. "I'm so sorry I couldn't love you. I'm so sorry I hurt you." "It's okay, Mama," Kella said, her voice muffled against Nira's shoulder. "Uncle Marcus and Dr. Yina brought your heart back." Nira looked over Keela's head at Marcus, who was standing back to give them space. Their eyes met, and for the first time, she saw him not as a business contact or convenient ally, but as the man who had risked everything to restore her ability to love her daughter. "Marcus," she said softly, "thank you. I don't know how to repay you. Seeing you two together again is payment enough," Marcus replied, but Nira could see the emotion in his eyes, the careful way he was watching both of them over the following days. As Nira recovered from the surgery, Marcus spent most of his time at the clinic. He told himself it was to help with Kella and monitor Nira's progress. But Yenna noticed the way he looked at the Zephyrian woman when he thought no one was watching. "You're in love with her," Yenna said one evening as they cleaned up after another successful day of recovery. Marcus nearly dropped the medical instruments he was sterilizing. "What? Nira, you're in love with her?" Yena's voice was matter-of-fact, but Marcus could hear something else underneath it. "That's ridiculous. I barely know her. And she's beautiful, intelligent, brave enough to sacrifice everything for her daughter. And now she's emotionally available again." Yenna turned away, focusing intently on her equipment. "Makes sense that you'd be attracted to her." Marcus studied Yena's profile, noting the tension in her shoulders, the careful way she wasn't looking at him. "Yena, it's fine, Marcus. We barely know.